The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the empty space between three solar systems. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly among the stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its outer ring every day. Inside the station, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to discuss trade, peace treaties, and the future of their civilizations. Mike Chen walked through the wide corridors of the diplomatic sector. His simple blue uniform marked him as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. At 32 years old, he had spent the last 5 years learning about alien cultures and languages. The job was not easy, but Mike enjoyed the challenge of bringing different species together. Today felt different, though. Mike could sense tension in the air as he made his way to the main council chamber. Alien diplomats whispered in small groups, their voices carrying worry and fear. Something big was happening. The council chamber was enormous, with seating arranged in circles that rose up toward a domed ceiling. Each species had their own section designed for their specific needs. The aquatic aquarians sat in water-filled tanks, while the silicon-based crystans rested on heated stone platforms. Humans occupied a small section near the middle, reflecting their recent addition to galactic politics. Mike took his seat and looked around the chamber. Over 300 representatives filled the space, each one chosen to speak for billions of beings across the galaxy. The responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders. "The session will now begin," announced the council speaker, a tall, thin being called Vex, whose species served as neutral mediators. "Today we address the growing threat of the Void Raiders and their attacks on peaceful worlds." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Void Raiders were space pirates who had been terrorizing the outer systems for months. They struck without warning, took what they wanted, and disappeared before any defense forces could respond. No one had been able to stop them. "The Zephyrian Empire will present their analysis first," Vex continued. Mike turned his attention to the Zephyrian section. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They looked similar to humans but were taller and stronger, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Their society valued strength, honor, and strict military discipline above all else. A figure stood in the Zephyrian section, and Mike felt his breath catch. Princess Kira of the Zephyrian Empire was known throughout the galaxy for her brilliant tactical mind and fierce independence. She was about the same age as Mike, with long silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Her military uniform was decorated with medals and honors earned in battles across a dozen worlds. "Honored Council," Princess Kira began, her voice clear and strong. "The Void Raiders represent a threat unlike any we have faced. Their ships use stolen technology from multiple species, making them unpredictable. Our traditional military responses have failed because they do not fight according to any known tactical doctrine." She activated a holographic display showing recent battle sites. Red markers indicated where Zephyrian fleets had engaged the raiders, and every marker showed the same result. The pirates had escaped. "We estimate their forces at 200 ships, possibly more," Kira continued. "They move in small groups, strike quickly, and retreat before reinforcements arrive. Our analysts believe they have a hidden base somewhere in the Dead Zone." The Dead Zone was a region of space filled with dangerous energy storms and gravitational anomalies. Most species avoided it completely, which made it a perfect hiding place for criminals. "What does the Empire propose?" asked the speaker. "A coordinated military strike using ships from all allied species," Kira replied. "We must hunt them down and destroy them before they grow stronger." Several representatives began arguing immediately. The Aquarians believed violence would only lead to more violence. The Crystans worried about the cost of a large military operation. The Insectoid Hive Collective wanted to know what they would gain from fighting someone else's war. Mike listened to the debate growing louder and more hostile. This was exactly the kind of situation that made galactic cooperation so difficult. Each species had their own interests and priorities, and finding common ground seemed impossible. After 2 hours of argument, the speaker called for a recess. Representatives scattered throughout the chamber, forming small groups to continue their discussions. Mike stood to stretch his legs and noticed Princess Kira walking directly toward him. The conversation around Mike stopped, as other diplomats noticed the Zephyrian princess approaching the human section. This was unusual. Zephyrians typically only spoke to species they considered military equals, and humanity had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. "Ambassador Chen," Princess Kira said, stopping in front of him. "I would like to speak with you privately." Mike felt dozens of eyes watching them. "Of course, Your Highness. Where would you like to meet?" "The observation deck on level 7, she replied. "In 1 hour." She turned and walked away without another word, leaving Mike wondering what the princess of the most powerful military empire in the galaxy could want with him. The observation deck was quieter than the main diplomatic areas. Large windows showed the vast expanse of space, with distant stars twinkling like scattered diamonds. Mike arrived early and found Princess Kira already there, standing at the main viewing window. "You study our military history?" she said without turning around. It was not a question. Mike nodded even though she could not see him. "I study all member species. It helps me understand different perspectives. What do you think of our tactics?" She turned to face him, her silver eyes intense and focused. Mike chose his words carefully. "Zephyrian military doctrine is highly effective against conventional enemies. Your forces are disciplined, well-equipped, and led by skilled commanders. But," she prompted, "but the Void Raiders are not a conventional enemy. They do not follow the rules of warfare that make traditional tactics effective." Princess Kira nodded slowly. "My thoughts exactly. I have been studying human military history as well, Ambassador. Your species has faced similar challenges." Mike was surprised. "You have been studying human history?" "For several months now," she confirmed. "Humans have a unique approach to warfare and conflict resolution. You adapt quickly to new situations and find creative solutions when conventional methods fail." She moved closer, her expression serious. "Tell me about the Battle of Midway." Mike blinked in surprise. The Battle of Midway was a naval engagement from Earth's Second World War, over 200 years ago. "What would you like to know?" The Japanese fleet was larger and more experienced, yet the Americans won a decisive victory. "How?" Mike thought for a moment. "The Americans used intelligence gathering and deception. They broke enemy communication codes, learned the enemy's plans, and used that information to set a trap. Instead of meeting strength with strength, they turned the enemy's advantages into weaknesses." "Exactly," Princess Kira said with satisfaction. "This is what I mean about human tactical thinking. You do not simply rely on superior force. You use psychology, deception, and creativity. Your Highness, may I ask why you are interested in this?" Princess Kira was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the stars. "In Zephyrian culture, members of the royal family must prove their worth before they can inherit positions of leadership. This proof comes through choosing a mate who demonstrates superior tactical and strategic thinking." Mike felt confused. "I do not understand the connection." She turned to face him directly, her silver eyes meeting his. "I have been observing the diplomatic sessions for months, Ambassador Chen. I have watched you handle impossible situations with species that have been enemies for centuries. You find common ground where others see only conflict. You build alliances instead of demanding submission. I am just doing my job," Mike said, feeling uncomfortable with the praise. "No," Princess Kira said firmly. "You are demonstrating a form of strategic thinking that my people have never mastered. When the Kristen delegation threatened to leave over the mining rights dispute, you did not try to force them to stay. Instead, you found a solution that gave them something they wanted even more than the original demand." Mike remembered that incident. The Kristens had been angry about proposed mining operations near their home system, but they had also mentioned needing rare elements for their technological development. Mike had suggested a trade agreement that gave them priority access to those elements in exchange for allowing limited mining in less sensitive areas. When the Aquarian and Terran ambassadors almost started a physical fight over territorial boundaries, Princess Kira continued, "You did not separate them or demand they stop. You asked them to explain their positions to you as if you were a child who knew nothing about their history. By the end of that explanation, they realized their conflict was based on a misunderstanding from decades ago." Mike nodded. He had learned that technique from his grandmother, who used to resolve arguments between his cousins the same way. "These are not accidents," Princess Kira said. "This is a consistent pattern of thinking that makes you uniquely qualified for leadership in a diverse alliance. Your Highness, I appreciate your confidence, but I am not sure what you are asking of me." Princess Kira took a deep breath. "In our culture, when a member of the royal family identifies someone worthy of partnership, they make a formal proposal. This proposal is both personal and political. creating an alliance between individuals and between their peoples. Mike felt his heart start beating faster. "A proposal?" "Ambassador Mike Chen of Earth," Princess Kira said formally. "Do you desire me as your wife?" The question hit Mike like a physical blow. He stared at the princess, trying to process what he had just heard. Around them, the observation deck seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them surrounded by the vast emptiness of space. "Your Highness," Mike began, his voice uncertain. "This is not just about personal feelings," Princess Kira said quickly, "though I admit I have developed respect and admiration for you over these months. This is about creating a new kind of alliance, one based on complementary strengths rather than simple military power." Before Mike could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice announced, "Alert, alert, hostile ships detected approaching the station. All personnel report to emergency stations immediately." Through the observation windows, Mike could see ships emerging from hyperspace. They were dark, angular vessels that looked like they had been built from pieces of other ships. "Void Raiders, how did they find us?" Princess Kira demanded, her training taking over. "Nexus Prime's location is classified." More ships appeared surrounding the station. Mike counted at least 30 vessels, more than enough to overwhelm the station's defenses. "They are jamming our communications," Princess Kira said, checking a handheld device. "No distress signals are getting through." Through the windows, they watched the raider ships begin firing on the station's defensive platforms. Explosions lit up the darkness as shields failed and weapons were destroyed. "The defense fleet is 3 hours away at best," Princess Kira said grimly. "We will not last that long." Mike watched the attack and felt his mind start working the way it always did when faced with an impossible situation. The raiders had superior numbers and firepower, but they had also made themselves visible. They were committed to this attack, which meant they could not simply disappear if things went wrong. "Your Highness," Mike said slowly, "you asked me about human tactical thinking. Would you like to see it in action?" Princess Kira looked at him with sharp attention. "What do you propose?" "We do not try to outfight them," Mike said, his plan forming as he spoke. "We turn their strengths against them and give them something they want even more than destroying the station." "Explain." Mike pointed at the raider ships. "They are pirates. Their primary motivation is profit, not destruction. Right now they are attacking a diplomatic station with representatives from dozens of wealthy worlds. But what if they learned about an even bigger prize?" Princess Kira's eyes widened with understanding. "You want to trick them into leaving." "Not just leaving," Mike said. "I want to trap them." The station shook as more weapons fire struck the outer hull. They needed to move fast. "But this plan requires cooperation from every species in the Council," Mike continued. "Including yours." Princess Kira smiled for the first time since he had met her. "Show me what human strategic thinking can accomplish, Ambassador. If your plan succeeds, I will have my answer about whether you are worthy of partnership. And if it fails, then we die together," she said simply. "But at least we will die trying something new." Mike nodded and started toward the door. "Then let's go save the galaxy." As they hurried through the corridors toward the council chamber, alarms continued blaring and the station shook under enemy fire. Mike's mind raced through the details of his plan, calculating risks and possibilities. He would need to convince dozens of different species to work together in ways they had never attempted before. The success of his plan, and possibly the future of galactic cooperation, would depend on humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find unity in diversity and turn conflict into cooperation. Behind them, explosions continued to light up the darkness of space as the Void Raiders pressed their attack, unaware that their greatest victory might be about to become their final defeat. The council chamber was in chaos when Mike and Princess Kira arrived. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting in their native languages while alarms blared overhead. The station shook again as another volley of enemy fire struck the outer defenses. "Order! Order!" the speaker Vex called out, but few were listening. The Aquarian delegates had sealed themselves in their water tanks for protection. The Christan representatives were heating their stone platforms to dangerous temperatures, a sign of extreme stress in their species. Mike walked to the center of the chamber and activated the emergency communication system. His voice echoed through the room, cutting through the panic. "Fellow representatives," he said calmly, "I know you are afraid, but panic will not save us today. We have perhaps 30 minutes before the raiders break through our remaining defenses. The shouting gradually died down as delegates turned to listen. Mike could see fear and desperation in dozens of different types of eyes. "The human has a plan," Princess Kira announced, moving to stand beside him. "I suggest we listen." "Why should we trust a human?" demanded Ambassador Thorks of the Gorlan Empire. His species looked like large armored bears and prided themselves on their warrior culture. "Your people have been in space for barely 5 years." "Because," Mike replied, "sometimes a fresh perspective sees solutions that experience might miss." He activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. It showed the current tactical situation. 30 raider ships surrounding the station with 3 more groups approaching from different directions. "The raiders have us outnumbered and outgunned," Mike said. "Any conventional military response will fail. But they have also made a critical mistake." "What mistake?" asked the Aquarian delegate, her voice bubbling through her tank's communication system. "They have committed their entire force to this attack," Mike explained. "Pirates normally hit and run, but they are staying to finish us. This means they believe the prize here is worth the risk." Princess Kira stepped forward. "The human is correct. This level of commitment suggests they have intelligence about something valuable on this station. But what could be more valuable than capturing representatives from every major civilization?" asked the Christan delegate, his crystalline form glowing with nervous energy. Mike smiled. "Nothing, unless they learned about something even better." He manipulated the holographic display, showing a nearby star system. 20 light-years from here is the Omega Research Station. It is a joint project between the Zephyrian Empire and the Terran Federation, officially researching new energy sources. This was partially true. The research station did exist, and it was working on energy projects. Mike was about to add some creative details. "What the raiders do not know," Mike continued, "is that the station has just completed development of a new hyperdrive technology. This drive can cross the galaxy in days instead of months." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several delegates looked confused, which was exactly what Mike wanted. "Are you suggesting we tell them about this technology?" asked Ambassador Thork skeptically. "I am suggesting we tell them about something even better," Mike said. "The first prototype ship equipped with this drive is scheduled to leave the research station tomorrow morning, carrying the complete technical specifications to Earth for final testing." Princess Kira's eyes widened as she understood what Mike was doing. The ship he was describing did not exist, but the raiders would not know that. "You want to bait them away from here," she said. "More than that," Mike replied. "I want to trap them." He changed the display to show the route between the research station and Earth. About halfway along the path was a system with a large asteroid field. "The Broken Crown asteroids," Mike said. "Thousands of large rocks with enough metal content to interfere with sensors and communications. If we time this correctly, we can convince the raiders to ambush a ship that does not exist in a place where our combined fleets can surround them." The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. Finally, Speaker Vex spoke. "This plan requires precise coordination between multiple species," he said, "and it assumes the raiders will believe your story." "That is where each of you becomes essential," Mike said. "Pirates succeed by gathering intelligence from multiple sources. If only one person tells them about this ship, they will be suspicious. But if they overhear the same information from several different species, they will believe it is real." "You want us to deliberately leak false information," said the Aquarian delegate. "I want you to have urgent, whispered conversations about a crisis that requires immediate action," Mike corrected. "The kind of conversations people have when they think they are being secretive but are actually quite loud." Princess Kira activated her personal communicator. "I can have Zephyrian ships positioned near the asteroid field within 2 hours. But we will need forces from other species to make the trap effective." "The Terran fleet is small, but our ships are fast," Mike said. "We can provide reconnaissance and coordination." Slowly, other delegates began to volunteer their resources. The Aquarians offered their stealth vessels, which could hide in the asteroid field undetected. The Christians agreed to provide their powerful long-range sensors. Even the usually isolationist Hive Collective promised to send interceptor squadrons. "This is remarkable," Speaker Vex observed. "I have never seen such rapid cooperation between so many species." "That is because they finally have a plan that uses everyone's strengths, instead of asking them to be something they are not." Princess Kira said, looking at Mike with obvious admiration. The station shook more violently as the raiders intensified their attack. Warning lights flashed as another defensive system failed. "We need to start immediately," Mike said. "Remember, the raiders are listening to our communications, so make your conversations sound natural but urgent." The delegates scattered throughout the chamber, and soon the air filled with carefully staged conversations about the fictional prototype ship. The Zephyrian military attaché spoke loudly about mobilizing escort vessels. The Terran trade representative complained about the risk to his shipping schedules. The Aquarian delegate worried about the environmental impact of the new drive technology. Mike and Princess Kira worked together at the central communications station, coordinating the real military response while maintaining the illusion of panic and confusion. "Admiral Sato," Mike spoke into his communicator, addressing the commander of the Terran fleet, "you need to intercept the prototype before the raiders detect it. The ship left early and is already en route." This conversation was entirely for the benefit of anyone listening. Admiral Sato was actually receiving completely different orders through encrypted channels. "Your Highness," Princess Kira spoke into her own device, "the Empire cannot afford to lose this technology. Deploy the 3rd Battle Group to provide additional escort." "The 3rd Battle Group is already moving," came the reply. "They will reach the interception point in 90 minutes. Mike watched the tactical display as ships from multiple species began converging on the asteroid field. The coordination was imperfect. Each fleet had different communication protocols and tactical doctrines. But it was working. Suddenly, the raider ships stopped firing. "They are receiving new orders," Princess Kira observed, checking her sensor readings. "Several ships are breaking away from the attack." Through the observation windows, Mike could see about half the raider fleet moving away from the station and jumping to hyperspace. The remaining ships continued their attack, but with reduced intensity. "Phase 1 is working," Mike said, "but we need to sell this even harder." He activated the general communication system again. "All delegates, we have just received word that the prototype ship has been detected by raiders. Repeat, the raiders know about the ship." The chamber erupted in what sounded like genuine panic but was actually carefully orchestrated theater. Delegates shouted about the catastrophic loss of the technology, the economic impact, and the military implications. "If this drive technology falls into the wrong hands," the Kristen delegate declared dramatically, "every world in the galaxy will be vulnerable to instant attack. The research data alone is worth more than the gross product of a dozen worlds," added the Aquarian representative. Mike had to admire their acting skills. Within minutes, more raider ships abandoned the attack on the station and jumped away. Only 8 vessels remained, just enough to prevent the station from sending pursuit. "Admiral Chen to all Allied commanders," Mike spoke into his communicator, using his father's old military rank to sound more authoritative. "The raiders have taken the bait. All units proceed to positions around the asteroid field. Remember, we are not trying to destroy them immediately. We want them to commit fully to the attack before we spring the trap." "Understood," came replies from multiple fleet commanders, all units moving to assigned positions. Princess Kira pulled up a new display showing the tactical situation at the asteroid field. "The raiders are arriving now," she reported. 22 ships total, moving in standard attack formation. "And our forces?" Mike asked. 43 ships from 7 different species positioned throughout the asteroid field. They cannot see each other due to the metal interference, but they can see the raiders. Mike watched as the raider ships spread out, searching for their target. They moved cautiously, aware that this could be a trap but driven by greed for the ultimate prize. "There," Princess Kira pointed to the display. "They have detected something." A small object appeared on the sensors, moving through the asteroid field on the exact route the fictional prototype ship should have taken. It was actually a modified cargo pod programmed to emit the right energy signatures. "Signal all Allied ships," Mike ordered. "Wait until the raiders are fully committed to their attack run." The raider ships formed up and began their approach, weapons charging for what they thought would be an easy victory. They moved deeper into the asteroid field surrounding the decoy. "Now," Mike said quietly. Princess Kira transmitted the attack signal, and the asteroid field lit up with weapons fire from dozens of hidden ships. The raiders found themselves surrounded, their escape routes blocked, their communications jammed by the very metal content that had hidden their enemies. The battle was brief. Caught completely by surprise and outnumbered 2-1, most of the raider ships surrendered immediately. The few that tried to fight were quickly overwhelmed. Admiral Vega to all units Gar, came a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet commander. All hostile vessels have been neutralized. Repeat, all hostiles neutralized. The council chamber erupted in cheers. As the news reached Nexus Prime, delegates from species that had been suspicious enemies an hour ago were now embracing and congratulating each other. The remaining raiders at the station are requesting terms for surrender, reported the station's defense commander. They know their main fleet has been destroyed. Mike felt a wave of relief wash over him. The plan had worked, the station was safe, and for the first time in galactic history, species from across the galaxy had worked together as a true alliance. Ambassador Chen, Princess Kira said softly, approaching him as the celebration continued around them. You have proven everything I hoped about human strategic thinking. Mike turned to face her, suddenly remembering the question she had asked before the attack began. Your Highness, he said formally, you asked if I desired you as my wife. The celebration around them began to quiet as delegates noticed the conversation. Yes, Princess Kira said, her silver eyes intense. And you have not yet given me your answer. Mike looked around the chamber at the representatives from dozens of different worlds, all watching expectantly. These beings had just experienced something unprecedented, true cooperation between species that had considered cooperation impossible. Princess Kira of the Zephyrian Empire, Mike said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. My answer is yes. The chamber exploded in cheers and applause. In Zephyrian culture, such public proposals were binding contracts that required approval from both governments and peoples. But, Mike continued, raising his voice over the celebration, I do not accept your proposal because I desire a wife. I accept because I desire a partner. Princess Kira smiled, understanding the distinction. Explain the difference. A wife might be expected to follow her husband's lead or defer to his judgment, Mike said. A partner challenges, questions, and contributes equally to every decision. Today you proved that you see possibilities I missed and have strengths that complement my weaknesses. And what do you offer in return? Princess Kira asked. A perspective that values cooperation over conquest, diversity over conformity, and creative solutions over traditional approaches, Mike replied. Together we can show the galaxy what becomes possible when different strengths work toward common goals. Speaker Vex stepped forward. By the ancient laws of diplomatic sanctuary, I witness this agreement between representatives of two sovereign peoples. May it bring prosperity to both your worlds and wisdom to all who follow your example. As the formal ceremony concluded, Princess Kira moved closer to Mike. There is something else, she said quietly. The Zephyrian Empire has been looking for new approaches to leadership and governance. Your methods today suggest possibilities we had not considered. What kind of possibilities? Mike asked. The kind that might help us build a truly cooperative galactic civilization instead of a collection of competing empires, she replied. Are you willing to help teach these methods to others? Mike looked around the chamber at the representatives still celebrating their unprecedented victory. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now planning joint operations and sharing resources. I think, Mike said slowly, that teaching cooperation might be the most important work any of us could do. Princess Kira nodded. Then let us begin. As they talked about the future, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The destruction of the Void Raiders had not only eliminated a major threat, but had also demonstrated that the seemingly impossible dream of true galactic cooperation could become reality. The marriage between a human ambassador and a Zephyrian princess would be remembered not as a romantic story, but as the moment when the galaxy learned that diversity was not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be celebrated and united. In the years that followed, the techniques Mike had used, finding common ground, turning conflict into cooperation, and building on each species' unique strengths, would become the foundation for a new era of galactic civilization. But that night, as the stars shone through the observation windows of Nexus Prime, Mike and Princess Kira simply stood together and watched the ships of a dozen different species working, side by side, to repair the damage from the attack. Do you know what I think is the most remarkable thing about today? Princess Kira asked. What? Mike replied. For the first time in galactic history, everyone won. Mike nodded. understanding that she was talking about more than just the battle with the raiders. They had proven that cooperation could accomplish what force alone never could, and that the greatest strength came not from being the same, but from being different and choosing to work together anyway. The future stretched ahead of them, full of challenges and possibilities that neither species could face alone, but together. With trust and mutual respect, there was no limit to what they might accomplish.